So we'll continue with some interface of Maya, and we'll look into something called hotbox. So if I hit space very briefly, I go to my 4 views, but if I hit it longer, I have this this menu. And what we have here is all the main important things what we have here on top, but they're very close to your mouse pointer. If you want, you can customize your middle mouse. How do you do it? No. Oh yeah. So if you want to customize this box, you hold space and hit hotbox controls, and we can hide parts. Just leave the rigging, or hide, show, or show hide rigging, show animation, and so on. So we kind of hide parts of this menu. At the moment we are in modeling, how do you say, menu, or whatever this is, and we have tools containing that about modeling. So edit mesh, edit tools, and we have all of these things here. Also, if we hit on Maya itself, we have left top view, different viewports, so we can change them. So it's pretty convenient thing to look at. Wait. Let me get a perspective. Yes. Then let's have a look at the grids and snapping, basically. So we have a grid, and now our grid is set. Here's a grid, show or not show the grid, and if I go to right click and grid options, I see that it's set to 12 units and I have a fat line, bold line, each, what is it, 5 units I think. Grid lines every 5 units, length and width 12 units, and subdivisions 5. So I can decrease, increase, and so on. Apply, and you see my grid is smaller. Why do we care about the grid and how it looks? Of course, if we would work in meters, we would have 1 meter or 1 centimeter or whatever we want. Options. I go with, what was it, 6 I think, or was it 5, default one? I think it was 5. Right, why do we care about the grid? So let's say I create an object. Here is a box, and we will see that the box has something called pivot point. It's the middle, in the middle, it's the center of an object. And we will look at the snapping options. So the first one is snap to grid, and basically how it works, it snaps the center of an object to the grid. So if you know the size of the grid, if you created your object not just whatever, but create polygon primitives cube, and I want it 2 by 2 by 2 units, create. And since we know that it's 1 unit, so we know if I duplicate the box and I move it, snap it to 2 grids, two grid units, I know that it just barely touches the other box. So it's very important, of course, just in general to be precise, but also when we work with models for game design, when we work with modular level design, we want our objects to create them in the way that we could snap them together and they would work nicely in our game engine. So another way of snapping is snapping to vertices, snap to points. So one of the options that it's nice you would use it is actually snapping the center point to, that's D I think, and I snapped it to, you see, the corner of our box. And now if I turn on grid snapping, it snaps not to the center of the box but to the corner. And of course it's important when you want to rotate things, where does it rotate from, the center or the corner, and so on. So for rotation, if we double click the rotation, we have somewhere here snap toggle, step snap, that's how it's called, and we turn it on, and in this case it's 15 degrees. So now if I turn it, you see it turns 15 degrees. Of course I can change it. I think the shortcut is G, I'm not sure. Yeah, off or not off. Yeah. So the most important is grid one and snap to points. There are other ones which you won't use as often, the curved ones, but we don't have curves at the moment. And the last one is live view, so you already knew that from retopology. Alright, then the other thing what we should look is hierarchies of objects. So let's say I create a couple of objects. One thing, another thing, and another thing. We have three objects and one more object. So let's imagine those are three, I don't know what, marble stones that are being placed on a box. So of course I would like to, if this is somehow a scene, I would like to be able to just move the box and the circles, the spheres moves together with the box. So how would I do it? So the easiest way would be to create a group, and we go to Windows and Outliner, where it's here, or it's here in the interface, and we see we have independent shapes here. They are just in the same level. I mean, they don't have any hierarchy. Also notice that all sorts of objects have different icons, so the cameras, geometry, polygonal geometry, and so on, so it's sometimes easier to work with. And what we could do is use middle mouse button and to place it one sphere to another one. You see what happened here? Now we have a hierarchy, and this I select just a sphere 2. It's this one, and you see the other ones are selected as well, and I'm moving only sphere 2. All of them are moving, so I created a hierarchy. Now I could say all this hierarchy will, middle mouse button, will be part of cube. So now this is a parent of the hierarchy, and inside that hierarchy we have another hierarchy in which this sphere is a parent of these three. So it's easy to control things like that. Sometimes, if you have a very big scene and lots of stuff, you could also look at Windows and how is it called? I think hypergraph hierarchy. Yeah, and you can have a view just with all the objects in the scene and their hierarchies, how they belong to each other and so on. So here we can arrange things differently the way we want. Maybe it's easier to see. Yeah, but it's basically when you have more objects, then it becomes important to have this. Since we are still in Outliner, let's also notice that we can rename things. So maybe it's just polygonal cube 1, or maybe it's a tray to carry spheres. I'm not sure what the spheres are. I don't know. Earth and the moon and something else. So again, it's important to have good names, because when you get somebody else's work and you need to find the moon and work on it, if somebody didn't, moon. You see, I found a group which has a moon. So it's important to name things correctly. Let's get rid of this filter. So we have that. In this case, we have a situation where one object is a parent of other objects. Let's now destroy our hierarchies. Now they are again back to independent objects. And let's say I want to make a group, but I don't really want, none of the objects are somehow, it doesn't make sense to have one of them as a main object that others belong to. So we can make a kind of a node, empty node, a group, which will work as this object. So if we go to edit, group, and I created a group. You see, it's just called a group. And now it has all these objects inside the group. The group itself doesn't have much, only a position. No, I can change its position. I don't think it has much more than that. You see, it has only, there is only one thing, one tab in attribute editor, and it's just position, rotation, things like that. So again, sometimes you could have things like this, or you could still have a group inside a group. Now I selected many of them, and now Earth controls all of them, which doesn't make really much sense if we have this group. So edit, ungroup, and let's get rid of that. So again, it's a good way of making, like, arranging your scene. Another way of doing it, let's pretend we have again lots and lots of objects in the scene, and it's hard to really navigate. So we want to kind of only deal with this sphere here at the moment. There is this nice button, how's it called? Isolate select. So I hit this and I see only the selected object. I work on it, and now I want to see it in the context of other objects. I hit this one again, and again I'm back in the regular view with all the objects. Again, there are other ways to control things. So let's pretend we have let's create a plane. This is a plane, and let's imagine we apply some image onto the plane. Imagine we have a drawing of a car, a human, or whatnot, and this is meant for modeling. So, you know, I go to this view and I can model, and I exactly see the face or whatever I'm modeling. But this is the object that I don't really need to be able to select. I don't really want to select it. So one of the ways of using layers would be to hide, or to actually put this object as a reference object, so to speak, into a separate layer, so I don't actually, I'm able to select it, because, you know, I want to work with this and I don't want accidentally selecting it. So we can have that under channel box editor, and here below we have layers right here. And now we can create a layer. Where is it? Move selected, no, this one. Create a new layer, and I did that. Now there we have a layer. So we can also create empty layers, you know. Let's say here we will have I don't know, a reference object, and maybe some different color if we need that. And maybe we have, you know, like I don't know, background objects. I don't know how to spell that. I'll leave it as it is. And maybe this one will be our, I don't know, character or something. So we could set up some layers. Okay, so I select the object, right click on the layer, and add selected objects. Now this object is invisible because the visibility of this layer is off. Say this one will go to my reference, which is again invisible at the moment. So right click, add selected objects, visibility off, on. And maybe I want visibility, but it should be a reference object, so it's only visible but I cannot select it. So you can add objects to any layer you want. Say this is the background object, add selected objects. Now maybe I made a mistake and I want this object to be somewhere else. So I select it, providing this is visible, and I put it somewhere else. Also, we can hide objects. So let's say I don't want to see this sphere here. I can go to display and where is it? Display, sorry. Hide selection. Control H. Hide unselected, Alt H, and so on. So you see the object is hidden, but it doesn't mean that it's still here in the outliner, and we can where is it? Unhide it. show, no. So it's show selection. Okay, so that was hiding of an object. And then another thing that you could use is so-called selection mask. So I think it's right here. No? Here? Yeah. So let's say I want to select only polygonal objects. So I click this and you see I actually select all the things here because I don't have much else. So let's create something else. And just a couple of other objects, some curves. I don't know what else should we create. Let's create I don't know, a camera or a light source, and so on. So now we cannot select them because we have this only polygonal objects can be selected. Or I can say, you know, only splines, only shapes can be selected. So again, sometimes important, sometimes easy to work with or good to use, especially when you have joints, bones and other things. So now I will just turn everything on and close it. Alright. So now I get rid of most of the things here. I cannot get rid of it because it's a reference. No. Now I can get rid of it. Okay, and now we will look into objects. So polygonal objects, you see we have lots of objects, or we can find them here under create polygonal objects, and we have lots of them. So again, let's see a sphere, and it just creates a sphere in the center of the scene. Or we could interactive creation, and we start creating at the point that we want, at the area of the 3D space that we want. Also notice that we can create objects, you know, let's say a cube, and I hit the box, so it's options, so I can specifically change the size of the thing and subdivisions. And now I create this object. And also notice that we have other objects, so polygonal objects and let's say platonic solid. And here again we have a lots of options. Is it tetrahedron, is it cube, is it octahedron, and things I don't even know. So here it is. And what else? Yeah, so explore these ones. Maybe let's make a small exercise. Let's create, I don't know, some sort of scene using all these primitives. Just again to practice the viewports, to practice creation of objects and such things.